Thank you for joining me on the Scarecrow Runner podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Gilbert, and I have a guest on with me tonight that he is a returning guest. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. He's a returning guest. I don't have to give him any fanfare. He doesn't expect it. For those of you that don't know who he is, well, he's right in front of you. For those that are watching, it's Mr. Aaron Dana. And Aaron is he's becoming quite a seasoned veteran in ultra running. And I know he probably may disagree with me, but he's learning he's still learning, right? He's still trying to get his feet wet, as they would say. He's still new to the sport. I know you're just a couple years in, Aaron, but you've done a lot of stuff that even I'm like, holy cow, man. I'm following you on social media. And I know we've known each other for 2.5 years now. And it's incredible to see what you've accomplished in the last 2.5 years and just the little amount of time that you've been training and truly embracing and doing the ultra thing, right? Because, like what we were just talking about offline, it's, the everyman runner, like we are, where we have a full-time job, we got family, we got kids, we've got, even for me, it's like, here in the next month, soccer season is going to get ready to kick off, and I'm going to have soccer practice and we're going to have soccer games. And it's like, and trying to navigate and plan and get miles in and try to do stuff. It's like, it's hectic. So to be able to see you do stuff, it's encouraging for me, just to watch people that I know excel and struggle and then have adversity. And then the next thing you know, hey, Aaron won a race. Holy cow, man. And we'll dig into that here in just a minute, but it's like, it's been cool to watch you grow and just mature and just experience stuff. And it's like, it's encouraging. So watching you and other people that I know has helped keep the flame, even though it was turned way down when I was taking time off. Seeing people and hearing people kept encouraging me in a small amount of way. And it's like, yeah, it's still there. It's just my body needed the rest. And it's like, I start watching stuff and I'm like, you stoke the coals a little bit more. It's like the fire starts to burn. And it's like, okay. I was like, let's do this. And yeah, so it's like, I've been wanting to have you on for a while, but it's like, just timing. It's like, I took all last year off. And I was like, I need a fresh start. And I tried a couple different things with the podcast and just wasn't clicking like I wanted to. And now here we are again, 2.5 years in the process and many miles down the road and lots of experience. And so we're going to jump into some of that. And so Aaron joins us. He is in upstate New York, where it's a lot colder for him than it is for me right now, I'm sure. He's had plenty of snow and plenty of opportunities. I was hoping that, I know we were texting back and forth about this, but I was really hoping coming onto this podcast that we would have had a chance to really banter back and forth about the Bills and the Chiefs. And I felt for you, man, because
yeah, man.
I'm a Chiefs fan. Aaron's a Bills fan. And it's like, I wanted that because I have nothing but respect for the Bills. I mean, I pulled for them when they played the Cowboys many moons ago in the Super Bowls, and I felt for them. But it's like, as a Chiefs fan, I was like, oh, I totally want the Bills to get crushed by the Chiefs. I want them to get there so that they can play. And it's like, it was a letdown. I was like, after all that happened this last, in the last month with Damar Hamlin and the cardiac arrest on the field, I will say this, Aaron, that game really it messed with me because I sat down to watch that game. Here I am. We're going to talk a little football here. Sat down to watch that game Monday night, and a couple of buddies of mine, they're all Dallas Cowboys fans, and one Seahawks fan, and then I'm the Chiefs fan in the bunch, and we're all watching that, and they're like, holy cow, dude, what just happened? And I watched the replay and I'm like, did he just die? It was like, and we were watching and we're just like, what the heck just happened? And it's like the more we watch, I rewound it because I had it on recording on DVR so I could go back and watch. And I was just like, this is messed up. This is some serious stuff here. And it just got,
Yeah.
deeper and deeper unfolding and CPR
Yeah.
on the field. And I was just like, it really takes you back because here these guys are top athletes, right? And to see somebody um, almost lose their life doing something that they love, and for people to, I think it just took me back to realize life is so short, right? And to watch people really come back to God, because here we are embracing a sport that we so love and many people worship it, and have people taken back in tears, grown men crying on the field. It was just like that messed with me. So I was like, I was kind of pulling for the Bills and hoping that they
Yeah.
could, ride that emotion.
Yeah.
And so many people thought after all that they're like, oh, the Bills are going all the way. They've got this motivation.
Right.
But as we both know, just because something happens that you have an experience like that does not guarantee that you're going to win it all, right? Because
Yeah.
that's not necessarily what was destined for that to happen. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that game messed with me, and I was like, I'm pulling for the Bills. I'm like, uh, I'm pulling for the Bills here. Um,
Yeah.
and then they didn't show up against the Bengals.
Well, I think
And
it just shows. I think it just shows that we're all human, and I mean, we've had in our family over the last year or so had some deaths in the family, and I know Damar Hamlin didn't die, but just the trauma and the reality of how close we really live to death every
mhm,
day. It's so fragile. That reality, like that, it messes with you, and not in a bad way, but in a very deep,
yeah,
contemplative kind of way. And I think that's what really impacted me. And I think we saw the whole nation kind of get faced with how fragile life is and how, as much as we care about this game, like life is way more important than who wins this game.
yeah,
And, as a Bills fan, or any a fan of any team or sport or whatever, it's what how I saw the Bills respond to that situation, the conversations I've heard that, the teammates are having, they were having like kind of like a spiritual awakening of some sorts. And how they handled the situation with such humility and honesty, like I couldn't have been more proud of my team. And I knew after that, I'm like, whatever happens in the season, I don't care. I
right,
love how like these people represent humanity, and how they represent the Buffalo and like Western New York region. I'm in Rochester, which is about 60, 70 miles from there. So it's right down the thruway. I mean, it's an hour away. We're pretty much, you know, we're very similar cities, blue collar cities. So yeah, I mean the loss was hard, but like I know what it feels like to experience that kind of trauma, and I'm sure it messed with them, man. I'm sure like it's exhausting, and you know as well as I do, and it does apply to like ultra running. When you're at the end of a really long football season or you're at the end of a really long race, could you imagine like being at the end of a race and then finding out that like or seeing someone almost die
mhm,
and having to keep going,
yeah,
like um like they had to just keep persevering and persevering, and like I felt like I don't think they can just I didn't think they had a Super Bowl run in them just with how much they had to endure.
no,
And I mean, I would have liked to have seen them tap into that like next level. But I also understand that they're human. Like I was tired from everything. I can't imagine having to go out there and perform and then get critiqued and criticized. And so I think there's a lot that they can learn. I mean, I think that the Eagles are going to win it all, honestly. They're
It would,
so dominant. Like the Niners and the Eagles are so dominant. Like, and I haven't really watched them enough, but man, how they like put away the Giants, I was like, geez, this team is just on fire right now, making it
yeah.
look easy.
Jalen Hurts, I got to watch him in college because he went to OU before, and before that he was at Alabama. But I got to what one of my boys has really taken to him, and so, and of course, I do fantasy football too. So it's like you watch a lot of different games and a lot of players, and it's like I watched a lot of Eagles games this year, and I'm like, man, he's good, and just they've got the right chemistry, they got a lot of talent, and it was like the NFC Championship game is going to be that's going to be a hard grind out game. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as the Bills go, it's like I almost feel like Aaron that they needed they needed to lose so that they could start to heal and process stuff, right? Because it's like, here they are so drained, emotional roller coaster of what they just went through. And then they ended up having to go and play another game the next weekend and then play another game. It's like you can't really process and heal like you need to because you're having to, well, it's time to suit up and it's time to go to work. And you
Yeah.
don't get that downtime, right? Because if you get that downtime, then you're more likely to, you know, you're not going to be in the mindset that you need to be for a game. And
Yeah.
so I just think now it's good that they're in the off season so that they can just process what happened and yeah, just get
Yeah.
back to life, right? Because life is so much more than football. Um, it's a game that we love to watch. It's a game we like to enjoy. You're a fan, I'm a fan. But as we both know, there's more to football than life. There's more to life than football. And while it's a fun thing to do, man, I can honestly say I had tears in my eyes that Monday night, and I was like, there was a point
Yeah.
where I was like, man, I don't even at that point I was like, I don't even care if the season continues, right? Because it's like this is serious, and so yeah, it just makes
Yeah.
you takes your breath away a little bit, and so yeah,
I
um,
think it's similar. I mean, it's similar to running too. Like there's more to life than running. Like running can add so much value, but like it's there's more to life than running, you know? I mean, I think all of those guys in the Bills locker room, they realize like how much more important like life is than just football. I don't think that means that like you lose your competitive edge, but you can get so focused in on what you're training for and what your goals are, and then have something totally come across your path you didn't expect, and you're like, wow, I was
yeah,
so focused on this that I lost track of like what's really important. So I mean, and honestly, it's like it's kind of a transition. I was thinking about this earlier, in the last few years, I feel like I almost feel less driven in this sport than I did at first, because at first I was like, I was hungry, it was new, I was excited. And now it's more of like, I'm just gonna stay with it. And I'm gonna stay putting some races on my calendar to work towards. But I mean, I got a race in like a couple months. I'm not even thinking about that race. I'm just putting in the work,
sure,
because I have so much more in life that I need to be focusing on than this race. But you could obsess every day. I'm training for this race. But
yeah,
like, is that really healthy? Because there's so many more things that I have to attend to in my life. I want to have running and ultra running add value to me and to my family and the people around me. I don't want I don't want them to all seem like they're playing backseat
yep.
to running. And at first, I
That's all you did.
probably I probably leaned heavier towards obsessing over it because it was so new and exciting. But now it's like, no, let's just settle in, make training just part of my daily routine, but it's not dominating my thoughts, it's not dominating my mind. I can have it be in its proper place. And I think with sports, anything that we do for fun, it has to be in its proper place. And you have to have it. be something that's going to add value to not just you. If it's really good, it will add value to you and the people around you. It's not just, it's good for me, but it at the expense of my wife or my
Hmm.
kids or my business. I want it to be making me a better person. And I think you have to find that balance of how much you're really devoting to this sport. And I still train a bunch, but it's different. I think it's different in here. And I think that's what the last few years have really helped me to develop that healthy level of, if I want to almost call it like a disconnect. It's like, let me just put in the work. It's almost like mindless. I run. That's what I do. I don't have to obsess. I don't have to make it a bigger deal than it is. And when it comes race day, when you start tapering, then you can really start to focus and
Hmm.
intensify and focus in. But
Yeah, it's so easy to obsess. And I've been running, gosh, I've been doing ultras. I really started jumping into ultras. What year was that? 2017. And I got to where I was obsessed with it, right? Because it's like, I'm gonna do this race, I'm gonna do this race, I'm gonna do this race. And before I ran that first 100, man, I was running about every race I could and just trying to get as much mileage in. And it was great. But as we both know, is you put so much into something, your body and your mind and everything, it's going to come crashing down too, because what goes up has to come down. And so you pump yourself up and you're getting yourself stoked and worked up to do all this training, hyped up about this race, and you put every waking minute into it. And it's like, and I learned, and that's like you're getting to that maturing stage to where it's still fun and it's still challenging for you, but you're learning to prioritize where it's like, okay, at what cost, right? And that's where I had to take a back seat. And that's part of the reason why I took that year off of not doing anything is I had to really think about and prayerfully think about what's important to me, what's important to my life. It's, am I willing, because I did this during my training for my hundreds, you're missing activities with your family or you're shorting yourself time. It's like, okay, I'm investing all this time in ultra running and my evenings, because I usually run in the evening, it's that extra time that I could spend with my wife, or I could be doing this with the kids or whatever it might be. And it's like, man, I'm like, I got to the point, Aaron, where it's like, I didn't want to get up and run 5 hours on a Sunday or Saturday morning because it's like, I'm getting tired of this. It got to the point where it's like I feel like this is a job and it's no longer fun because I have to get that mileage in. I was like, no, you know what? Going forward, my training will happen if I have time. I'll just like this last week. I was supposed to, I'm still following a plan ish, but I adjust according to my life on what's going on. So it's like last night I went out for a run. It was supposed to be an hour and a half. I didn't have an hour and a half. I had an hour. So guess what? I made the best of that hour that I had and I called it good. Whether it's 6 miles or 16 miles, I was like, it's like what you were mentioning earlier, the quality, right? It doesn't necessarily mean quantity. I would rather put quality miles in rather than quantity because I mean, when you got the training and the hay is in the barn, it's going to come out and you're going to I just know, like I ran that 25K on Saturday. I wasn't ready for a 25K technically because I have only been running for a couple weeks again in the last 3 months, but I flipped that switch. Like you said, I'm not thinking about the race until the race is there. And it was like, okay, I toe the line. I was like, this is a training run for me. I started the watch, I took off, and then instinctually, my body says, it's a race. Now, did I go out and run super fast? No, but I still went out and ran faster than I had been running in any of my training runs. And I was like, I'm actually running a pretty good time here. And I just kept that pace. And I was like,
yeah,
it was something I felt satisfied with what I did. I was like, that's what it's about. It's like, I don't necessarily have to go out and win a race. I don't have to necessarily go out and run a certain distance, but I need to prioritize what's important: family, faith, my health, and I've got to balance it. And it's all about a good balance. And so I know, like, when you're going out and getting miles on the mountain, it's not just Aaron going out and putting miles in. You're making it an opportunity and an experience. You're taking advantage, like you guys were out there in the snow and messing around. You were having fun. You were having a good time. You were still getting miles in. It was a different type of doing the mileage, right? But you were going out there and it wasn't all about staying on a training schedule or whatever. You were having fun. You were
Yeah.
adjusting and you were just living life to the fullest. And that's, I think, the most important thing.
Well, what's kind of cool is my running journey started in the mountains because, you know, I hike in the Adirondack Mountains, which are pretty rugged. You know, they're not crazy big, but they are steep and they're rocky and they're rooty and they're rugged. And I got destroyed by them, and I was addicted to that experience because something so beautiful could cause me to have to dig deeper and persevere at a level I'd never really experienced before. And honestly, a long day in the mountains, it feels very similar to an ultra. So I didn't even really know what ultras were when I was hiking in the mountains. And then I started trail running because I'm thinking I have to get in better shape to be able to experience these mountains. And it's funny because you fast forward, I started running in 2019 and we're at 2023 now. It was the fall of 2019. And my hope was I just want to get in better shape to be able to experience these mountains without suffering a ton. It's still hard,
Sure.
but without being totally destroyed. And this past summer, I was hiking with some of my buddies in the Adirondacks. I had a pound pack on, and we're doing this backpacking trip. And I'm realizing this is where I want to be. I'm experiencing these mountains. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling fit. It's hard work, but I don't feel like I'm going to die. This is why I started running, because I wanted to be in good enough shape to enjoy a long day out in the mountains and then be able to walk the next day. And ultras, I mean, ultras are awesome and it's another level of having that experience, but it's more about, for me, just getting my body to a place that it's just capable to do these hard things so that I can challenge myself and not just be totally destroyed. And so, yeah, going in the mountains this past weekend was another reminder of that. I mean, I get to be out here and experience some very beautiful, scenic, remote things, and my body allows me to do it well. And it's still dangerous, but I have a lot of more confidence in my body to see myself through, and even able to like take the weight for other people so
Mm-hmm.
that I can help their load be easier. So yeah, it all started in the mountains, and I love getting up there because it's a different pace, and but you still have to persevere because it was a 7 to 8 hour day for us out there carrying heavy packs in the snow and the cold. Like that's a long day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, man, it's cool to see what happens when you're consistent day in and day out and you do the right things to take care of your body, what your body will give you. And honestly, I know what you're saying about burnout because I was kind of there the first couple years of running. I think because I was training a little bit too much and too hard. And when my training philosophy changed, I changed coaches, my mileage got reduced, and I found that sweet spot of training enough to get growth and see results, but not training so much that you feel like you're you're dreading that
Hmm.
long run.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of where I started. I was excited, but then I was always teetering on a certain level of burnout or overtraining. I wouldn't say it was chronic overtraining, but I was always struggling with wanting to get out for that long run or put in that hard effort in a speed workout or something. But now I've adjusted my training to be sustainable. It fits within my life. Running, if I get a 25-mile weekend, but it's good quality stuff and I got some good strength workouts in, I'm happy with that, man. I'm maintaining and slowly improving. So gone are the days of running 60 to 70 to 80-mile weeks of just grinding it out. It's like, no, if I can do very well running 30, 35 to 40, 45 miles a week. When you start to get
Yep.
those bigger weeks in.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
and it's like I feel better doing it. My body isn't getting broken down as quickly. It's lower intensity, so my body can do it for the long haul. Because the first couple of years I was always teetering on burnout. I was always dealing with some kind of lingering, like, injury was always knocking at the door. And since I changed coaches a couple years ago and my training drastically changed, I haven't dealt with any injuries. I've been better to be around. I'm not it doesn't mean that I don't have those hard, you know, weeks where I'm like, man, it's going to be hard to get out tomorrow. But man, I think you can do so much in the sport if you cater your training to fit your life
Hmm.
and fit what's sustainable. Um, because as long as you're putting in solid time on feet, you're keeping your fitness at a good base level and you're doing some strength work and mobility work, and you could do some awesome things.
Absolutely. I remember when you started in 2019, because that was when I was getting ready. That fall is when I did my 100. And I remember you would post workouts and you were going balls to the wall, 120 miles an hour. And I was like, holy cow, man, this dude's a beast. And, but then I could see it as like you were always talking about, man, I've got this nagging, I got an issue with my foot, or I got an issue with my hamstring, or I got an issue with my quad. And I was like, dude's going to burn out and flame out. And he can't run. And I know you'd had to take some time off, so I'm glad you found that balance, because I can agree with you 100%, Aaron, because you're looking at somebody that my max, of course, at the time with the coaching that I was getting pushed to do 70 plus miles a week. And I was like, I don't have the time, and nor do I want to spend the time of that. And I was more comfortable, and I am still to this day will totally agree with you. I'm more comfortable, and I feel like I am more than capable of completing the races that I want to run, running between 30 to 50 miles a week, because I know what my body can do. Everybody's built differently. And I know if I start pushing myself beyond that 50-mile a week threshold, my body starts to feel it and I start to fall apart. And then I'm like, I'm going to be hurt. And I've got all these little niggles and they're keeping me from putting in that mileage. And then I start having that guilt complex of, man, I didn't get my long run in today. Now I got to go out and work even harder tomorrow because I didn't get that long. I got to get those miles. I got to get those miles. And that's the wrong mindset, the wrong mentality of, you shouldn't feel pressured to put those miles in, because, man, I don't care how many people I've read stuff on it. They always say, I mean, like one of the training plans that I've been running with said, don't worry about a workout if you missed the workout today or this week. It's the long run. Like for you, for the last 4 years, you've stayed consistent. You've adjusted and adapted your training plan and what you're putting in, and you listen to your body. Same with me. It's like I took rest. I needed the rest. Now my body's ready to go again. It's like that engine's roaring. It's like, okay, let's go. I know what my body can handle. And so if I took a month off, some people would be like, oh my gosh, your fitness is going to drop. Well, let me tell you this. So I'm looking at Strava. You know how Strava will show you what your fitness, your fitness level has been. And I've looked over the last 2 years and it's like, okay, so I had COVID in October and then I watched my fitness level just drop. And I was looking at it, I was like, holy cow, it drops incredible. But guess what? In 3 weeks of running since New Year's or the week before New Year's, my fitness is way past where it was in October. So even though my fitness dropped in considerably in 3 months, a little bit of hard work and just staying consistent, my fitness is, well over where I was in October. So, and my fitness is better than it was 2 years ago as far as what it's ranking me at. So I'm like, do what's comfortable for you and stay consistent and adapt, right? Have
Yeah.
fun. That's the thing, is running is supposed to be fun, man. And so
Yeah.
many people put so much emphasis in, you got to do this and you got to do that. And it's like, you know what? No, I don't. When I started running, I ran because I loved running. And, you develop your why. Why are you doing this? Well, you did it because you love the mountains and you were in the mountains and that's where your why was at. And I know your why has evolved and has adapted into other stuff. I know one of your posts on Instagram, I'm always reading up on your stuff and everyone else's, but I want to quote it. It says, I run ultras to bring myself to a place where I come face to face with the best and want parts of me and allow and allow others around me to see it. I love that because it's like, you're running ultras, bring yourself to a place where you can come face to face with the best and bring out the best parts of your life. You love the mountains, so you go out and you run in the mountains and you enjoy it and it breathes life into you. And you're in the creation from the creator. And it's like, that picture that you posted, that video that you posted on Instagram this last weekend, where you guys were above the cloud line, right? And you're like, God is here. And I was like, heck yeah, he is. And allows you to enjoy the moment. And it was more than just getting miles in. It was more than just spending time with your buddies, but you were in the creation. And that's the best time for me. It's like, that's why I love running trails. I don't run with music anymore. It's like, I just want to be a part of what God has created around me and just get lost in it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And everybody's why is different. And, I think what the journey I've been on has been on that honing in that why, but more about like really discovering what is it that I'm using as motivation or fuel, because I can be a very competitive person. You can, being football fans, you can get so stuck on stats and touchdowns and interceptions. And it's like, you can get so caught up in the numbers or the paces of what you're trying to do in comparison to other people. And for me, like, it's like if I had a goal to win a race or place top and I didn't do that based on whatever reason, like when I see that start slipping away, it starts to impact my joy. It starts to impact my passion. So like I've been trying to find like how do I in a very healthy way tap into something that gives me strength in these races. So for instance, last year when I did the Mid-State Mile last man standing race, I was really struggling with who I wanted to be in that race. I wanted to win it. I thought I could have competed. But I really got in my head because I thought I had to be someone that I wasn't. In order to win, I would have had to let like my opponents, I'm calling them opponents, but they're my friends. I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't let them see my weaknesses. I couldn't let them see my struggles. I couldn't let them in to what I was going through. And I realized like for me, that doesn't work for me. Like that person is going to give their best. I'm going to give my best. Whether they know that I'm struggling or not, doesn't matter. But I needed to realize or learn the lesson that I run better and I endure suffering better when I'm able to be honest about what I'm feeling in the moment, not just keep it in. Some people, they can just hold it in tight, push that down, ignore it, and just keep going. But for me, what I learned was no, I need to be able to process what I'm going through when I'm going through it, not to complain, but just to say, to recognize this is what's happening to me right now. I'm struggling with whatever. I'm
Hmm.
struggling with my knee. And it's really discouraging me because I feel like I'm not going to be able to endure this for 20, 30 more hours. When something starts happening very early in a race, I have to dialogue with people on that and they can help me work through it. You know, um, so I've learned like I'm a verbal processor and I
Yep.
need to work through things with other people. So after mid-state last year when I didn't do as well as I wanted, that was a lesson I learned. So I immediately signed up for I wasn't even home because we were, in Tennessee, but then we went to Cincinnati and then we came home as a family. So I signed up for this Mighty Mosquito 100. It was going to be in August and I had just finished a race in June. I needed redemption. I was like, I need to apply these lessons learned. And the lessons I wanted to apply was I'm not going to look at my watch for anything other than the time and my heart rate. I'm not going to be concerned with my pace. I'm not going to be concerned with anything. I'm going to run solely on listening to my body, running by feel, and enjoying every step I get in that race with all the runners, with my crew, with everybody. And, long story short, I won that
Yeah.
100-mile race. And there was a moment in that race during the heat of the day when I just felt like everything was falling apart. I felt like I'm going so slow. Like I am going way too slow to win this race. I'm not gonna hit my goal. But like being patient and enduring the heat of the day, it's like, no, slow it down. You run too fast, you're gonna start to have GI issues. You're gonna
Hmm.
start whatever it is. So it was such an awesome experience to apply lessons learned from Mid-State Mile and to see like you can still push yourself and not even know how many miles you've run. You can push yourself even if you know your pace or not. Like you don't have to know those things to know I've been giving it a very solid effort this whole time and trust that that's going to be enough. Because being concerned with paces and where I am, if I'm first or second or third or fifth or whatever, like those things don't help motivate me. Like I
Right.
just had to be focused on what my body needed, what my mind needed, what my soul needed. And it was really cool to just kind of like be like, I want to win this thing, but I don't care if I do or not. I'm just going to give it my best and trust that that's going to be enough. And it's so much more enjoyable that way, because you're limiting your expectations, but you're putting your expectations in the right place. My expectation was I wanted to enjoy everybody I got to run with. I had my brother, my cousin, multiple really good friends pace me for a loop or two. I had the best day spending it out there with the people I love. And by the way, I was able to win it too. But what I'm going to remember is all the experiences I have with those people out there. So, you know, it's important to develop your why and it's got to be connected to who you are as a person. If you're wired with numbers and paces and that really works for you, great, use it. But for me, it doesn't. Like I need to enjoy the experience. I'm out here to grow as a person. Whether I win, because I'll tell you what, Anthony, winning that race, it almost makes you feel like empty. You're like, is that it? Is that what it
Hmm.
feels like to win a race?
Yeah.
I thought it would feel more satisfying. And all I did was find reasons why it wasn't that impressive. It's like, well, um, the guy who was winning the race dropped out. Like if he stayed in, he probably would have beat you. Or, the heat took a lot of people out that day. Or, there's a big race that happens in our area that took a lot of really strong runners that did that race instead. Like, oh, if there was more strong runners there, you probably wouldn't have won it anyways. So like it was weird how like you win something, but then your brain is like trying to discredit it. And honestly, at
Always.
the end of the day, it's like winning it, like I was just happy with my effort. I was just happy that how my body um handled it. And I was like, I was just really happy with my body. I was happy with my crew, my friends. So there's so many things, and whether you finish first or you finish last, being proud of the effort, being proud of how much you put into it, and also seeing the people that are around you that are pouring into you. Like for me, that's what I'm really trying to connect to in ultra running. Let the results be what they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's not going to be from lack of effort, on my part, or you know, so
Yeah, I can relate to that because there was a race that I did in 2019 when I was preparing for my 100, and I went out. I'd ran it before. It's a point to point. It's 44 miler. It's a point to point. It's normally done as with relay people. So I've done it with collegiate teammates. We did it. You run a couple of legs, whatever, right, and you do it as a team, or you can come out and do it as a solo. And I've done it twice as a solo, and the first time I ran it, I wasn't really feeling like I was. I mean, it just beat me up, right? It's in the Flint Hills of Kansas. It's rolling hills, gravel, and it just beat my feet up because I didn't have the time on the feet. And I finished next to last as far as solo runners go. And so then I come back the next year or 2 years later, and I was like, I put too much emphasis in it, Aaron. It's like I was like, I'm a stronger runner now. I know I can go out there and kill it. And so I put all this hype in, man, I'm gonna go out there and kill it. Yeah, well, that about got me. I finished last out of all solo runners, last out of everybody. But I was like, you know what? The fact that I didn't, I mean, I didn't know I was dead last at the time, but while I was persevering and I was just out there, there's this long 5.5 mile stretch that goes along the oh, not the quarry, but just this long stretch of lonely trail. I mean, you can see for miles, right? Because it's flat, and I was like, man, I can see almost 3 miles in front of me, right? Because you can see quite all the way across. And I was like, okay, I'm just trotting along, and the biker sweeper comes through, and I'm like, am I good on time? He's like, oh, you got plenty of time, bro. And I was like, okay, I'm just relaxing. I'm running my thing and just struggling. I was on the struggle bus, but I was like, I'm not quitting this race because I want to finish because it's part of my training. And I was in a competition to try to get as many points for an ultra. I was part of an ultra club to where however many miles or ultras you did, you got so many points. And I was like, if I quit, I'm not going to get anything for it. So I never want to quit. And I finished, and my friends and teammates that did it as a point to point team, they were there cheering me on. That was more rewarding than anything because it's like my friends were there at the finish line with a cold beer and hugs and high fives. They're like, you did it, way to go. They didn't care if I finished dead last. And it's like I learned a lot from that race about myself, that I was like, I can do this. It doesn't matter if you're first or last, because it's like you said, finishing first often comes. I don't want it to sound bad for those that are listening or watching. Winning a race is great. I've never won a race like an ultra like you have, but I mean, I've won some shorter races. It's a temporary, I did it. But then it's like, you're like you said, your mind, is that it? What else is out there? It's like really? That's all there was that came with that? Whereas the races that I've ran where I was in the middle of the pack, the experiences and the opportunities of having conversation with those that are around you, that far exceeds winning a race, because you won in life because you're experiencing people, you're having relationship with people, you're building relationship, and you're sharing miles with people. And it's like, those are the things I remember the most. I'm not, most of the races I've ran, I'm like, I don't even know what place I was in. I don't really care because I finished. And when you look back at it on time, when time goes by, people aren't going to remember, oh yeah, Aaron Dana, he won that Mighty Mosquito 100. No, now they'll look back at the record books and they're like, yeah, he won it in, in that in 2022. Yeah. They don't think, oh, the competition wasn't full. It wasn't a full field. They don't think about that. Most people don't look at the total number of runners. And you're not in it for winning it anyways. You're just in it to push yourself and to be the best that you can. And so I know you've had some, times where you didn't feel like you competed hard enough and you didn't feel like you were yourself. I know in that mid-state mile, I remember reading where you were like, in the middle of the race, I switched my strategy because I wasn't being who I was. I was trying to run a race that wasn't me. I switched my mid race and I started being encouraging out on the trail and talking to people and encouraging and sharing the experience with them. And that's when the race changed for you, because you're like, I'm not being me. And if you're trying to do something that you're not going to make it. But if you're authentic and you're being who you are and you're running the race, you're running your race. Like you said, I run based off of feel and effort. I'm not going to base myself off of, oh, that split didn't look good. No, doesn't matter what the split is. What are you putting into it is what you're going to get out of it. So it's like, who cares, right? It's like, I can look back at the splits in the race on Saturday. My worst split was when I stopped and I got some hydration. That was like, so what? I'm taking care of my body, and I was talking to somebody and encouraged, thank you for being out here supporting us. Okay. Yeah. And I move on down the road. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh my gosh, it was a 10-minute mile. Gosh, that's horrible. No, as ultra runners, we know that 10-minute mile, okay. Whether it's a 20-minute mile or a 10-minute mile, you get the miles in. And so you've had adversity, you've overcome adversity. You've fallen flat on your face. Things have not always gone as well as they've wanted for you. You still put the miles in, and then you keep challenging yourself with bigger and more challenging things. Aaron, I wanted to jump into was the Tennessee Mile 40 hours that you ran this last year. And holy cow, dude, I'm just going to read. I am kind of a stats nerd just because I'm, growing up in sports, following my favorite players, I'm always like, this guy hit this many home runs and this guy had this many touchdowns. It's like, yeah, I love stats because it's like, it shows consistency, right? Travis Kelce for the Chiefs is one of the best tight ends in history, right? And I was at the game where he caught the most touchdowns and, the most receptions for a tight end, blah, blah, blah. Okay, stats are stats. I still like to look at them because I like the fact that my 25K that I ran Saturday, I've only ran 2 25Ks in my entire life. And the last time I ran it was 5 years ago. And I set a 5-minute PR. And I'm like, I'm a stronger runner now, even though I don't have the training base right now that I had that year. I'm a wiser, more strong runner because I know what I'm capable of doing. And that's what ultras did to me, is it changed my mindset to where I don't have to run super fast. And it's kind of like my disc golf game too. I can't throw it as far as some guys can, but I can make up the difference in my second shot because I can close the gap. If I stay consistent and I keep pushing myself and I'm just doing my race and running what I can run, I will cover more ground than I'll ever even begin to imagine, because I'm in my element. I'm not running someone else's race. I'm running my race. And like you said, if you stay with it, people are experiencing things at different times. They're in the same element you are, whether it's 110 degrees outside or if it's 20 degrees outside. Everybody adapts to it differently. So you run your race and let the chips fall as they may. So you go and you run the Tennessee Mile 40 hours. 98 loops, 107.8 miles, 36,000 feet of gain. That's some stupid elevation. And
It's a lot.
it's a lot. And that was a beast of a race. I mean, I remember looking at pictures and videos that you shared. And I mean, when I'm thinking of elevation when I'm running, it's like, oh man, one of my training runs a couple weeks ago is like, yeah, we got 800 feet of gain in that run. Okay. But you ran 36,000 feet of gain. That's a lot. Talk about grinding it out, right? And destroying your quads and everything in the process. Take us through the Tennessee Mile and what you experienced, Aaron, because that was a race like you haven't ever ran before. And not only did you run a great race, you set a new course record and you were the overall winner, which was phenomenal. But what kind of race was it for you?
Well, it's because it was in early December, it's kind of at the end of a race season, but it's almost like that off-season race. I feel like summer races, you have a little bit more hype going into it. Like the Mid-State Mile is on the same course, and that's like so hyped up and everyone's so excited. The Tennessee Mile, it was more about I just want to have a very I just wanted to have that experience of going out, being on my feet for 40 hours and knowing what that feels like, going through 2 nights, which I'd never gone through 2 nights running before. It started at 4 p.m. on Friday and ended at 8 a.m. on Sunday. So you already start at the end of the day, which
Yeah.
is already harder because you've been up all day. So it was it was a race. I wanted to experience that. I just wanted to experience being out there for that long. I wanted to go over 100 miles. On this course, it's hard to do 100 miles in 24 hours. So, and I've gone for 24 hours. I've gone for close to 30 hours before. So I wanted to see what happened to me when you go past 30 hours to have that experience. So it was more of and it's a pretty low key race. Everyone can do different uh, times. So I was out there for 40 hours. There was 24 hours, there was 12 hours, there was 8 hours, there was 6 hours. So people cycle through, start and finish the race, and we're still going. So for me, it was honestly, I know the physical time on feet, it's like 108 miles, 36,000 feet of vert. You think it's going to be the challenge is going to be physical, but it wasn't. It was mental. My legs felt really good after that race. I ran the hardest I'd ran that whole race the last hour and a half, and I felt really good. It's probably the best I've ever felt after a race doing this one. And it's the longest I've ever done. So that's kind of a testament to the type of training that I did to get ready for it. But it was a mental battle, man, because I can't remember exactly how many hours of daylight we had in that 40 hours, but it was I would say somewhere around 12 hours. Most of it was in the dark because you're starting so late. You start at 4 p.m. The sun set in 30 minutes.
Yeah, because it's
And
in
then the
December,
sun
right?
December, and then the sun came up at like 6:30 in the morning, and then it was 4:30, it's done. And you spend so much time in the dark, which I didn't really think about that going into it, how hard it would be to be in the dark for so long. The first night was torrential downpouring, on and off, but pretty heavy at times. And then the second night, it went from being maybe in the 50s during the day to like 20 or lower at night. It was so cold, and you're already at the end of your race, and your body is not regulating its temperature as well. So it was more mental as far as I just didn't want to be out there. I was just tired of it. And my wife was there and my friends were there and they were sitting around a campfire every time I came through the loop. And I was like, I just want to hang out with my wife. I drag her all the way out here. Why am I just leaving her? I want to be with her. So it was, my mind got very creative trying to justify
Mm,
why I should take more time at the aid station just to, and I needed to like eat and drink, and but I just didn't want to leave her. And she's like, you just gotta go. Just keep going. So she had to just keep kicking me out. I left a lot out on that course. Like there was still more meat on the bone. I gave it a good effort. Um, but I knew I could have gone further. But it was a different experience, man. And I learned that, yeah, my brain gets very creative when I don't want to do something anymore.
oh yeah.
It wasn't because I was hurting. I just wanted to be somewhere.
Other
My
than
main
running, right?
my main mental challenge. So I will say this. Um, John Cox, who's the race director of the Tennessee Mile, him and his fiance Becca are technically like they both coach. So they're my running coaches. So I had a pretty low moment in the middle of the second night, and I was just complaining because it was cold and I was uncomfortable. I wasn't hurting, I was just uncomfortable. And he said, who cares? Like, why are you so concerned about being comfortable right now? Nobody out here is comfortable. But yet, all I wanted to be was comfortable. And I think I can learn that lesson for my life outside of running. Like, how much of what I'm doing is just to try to set myself up to be comfortable. It's like, no, I put myself in this position to not be uncomfortable. But I think I put myself in those positions because my life can be so comfortable. I mean, our lives as Americans can be so comfortable. And if we get too hot, we put the AC on. If we get too
Mm-hmm.
cold, I mean, everything is about comfort. And being out there was nothing comfortable about it.
Mm,
I would get my hands warmed up and then they'd be sweating. I'd have to like take my gloves off or something, and then they're freezing again. It was like this constant flux of going from one end of the spectrum to the other, and I was just tired of it, man. But I was very happy to see that side of me come out, because honestly, if you're just going through one night, you can push through. You know, if you're running 24, 26 hours for a 100 miler,
yep.
there's a big difference between running for 24 hours and 40 hours. That 16-hour difference is crazy. Like you go into more sleep deprivation, and so yeah, man, I feel like at the end of the day, I was happy that I just kept moving, because kind of like what we were talking about, I drew strength from all the other runners that were out there that didn't do anywhere close to the mileage I did, but they were still stinking out there for 40 hours. They were listening to their body. They were changing their clothes. They were taking cat naps, but then they kept going, man. And to see all those people out there pushing themselves and just grinding away, because it would have been so easy to just go sit in your car and just be done.
Oh
No
yeah.
one would have cared. No one would have cared. But so many of these people stuck it through to the very end. And I think like that's what that race was all about. It's like just keep going. Just stick it through to the end, because it's hard when you don't have a distance that you have to get to. It's time. Because I could say I'm happy. I got 100 miles in. I'm happy. Um, I don't have to keep pushing myself, but it was all about, no, stay out there for as long as you got time. Keep going, man.
Yeah, that's definitely time versus distance. I haven't run a race for overall time yet, and I know it's coming, but with distance, hey, 100 miler, oh, I've got 20 miles left. I've got, and for me, it's like, okay, I've got a 50K left. I've got a half marathon left. And you can start counting down. And for me, that helps motivate me knowing, hey, I've got this much fuel in the tank. I can go. I've got a 10K left. I know I can crush this. But the fact that you started in the afternoon and going into the evening, you're already hitting sunset. You're hitting darkness right off the bat. And it's like the night, it messes with you. And you're running through the night and you're used to sleeping at night. And then you get that sunrise. And it's like, okay. And just like in a normal 100 miler, that's that morning that comes after you've gone through the night. It's like, I'm almost to the end. But like you said, no, you're just beginning, brother, because you got that whole 16-hour difference there. It's like the sun comes up and you're like, I got a whole day of running ahead of me and a whole nother night. And so then you're putting yourself in a whole different thing. I know about that creativity thing because I don't know how many times I've been out there. I ran a 50 miler in Missouri in 2020, and the conditions were probably one of the worst races I've ever ran, just because I got there and it started at 6 o'clock in the morning and it was torrential downpours, thunderstorms, lightning flashing everywhere. And I was like, this is how this race is going to start. Because it's one thing to start a race and you're mid race and you're in your groove and it might come up and start raining and you don't think anything of it, right? But to start the race in a torrential downpour, you're already like, this sucks. I'm already soaked and we haven't even started yet. And so that whole mental, and it's like, I ran 9.5 hours in pouring down cold rain. You go in, you do your lap, your loop, you go in and I change shoes, change socks, change shorts. I put my, stuff on, wearing a rain, plastic, whatever you want to call them, rain jacket, whatever, poncho, and go back out. You're soaked in the next 15 minutes. It's like, well, that was a waste. And it's so detrimental. It's like, in my mind, Aaron, I was like, dude, I'm ready just to quit. And maybe I can just drop down to the 25 miler or drop down to the 50K or whatever it is. I sit there and I was like, I'm going to think of a way that I can get out of this thing without people thinking I'm a complete quitter and loser. And so I start thinking, man, I could just stop and I could go and get my car and get warmed up and be good. And I could, and this is like, your mind just starts getting more and more creative. And it's like, yeah, that sounds good. And then I was like, but then what am I going to get out of it? Because I signed up for this and I understand that whole comfortable. I want to be comfortable. Well, I was uncomfortable from the start. So it's like, brother, forget about trying to be comfortable. You're not going to be comfortable until probably the week after the race is over, because as we both know, after you run an ultra, your body goes through all sorts of crap. You go through the ultra sickness, you got the chills and you got the shakes and you got, blisters on your feet and you got the chafing and, everything else. It's like, yeah, about a week later, I'm like, I'm finally starting to feel like myself. No, forget about trying to be comfortable, because we are spoiled. Like you said, Americans especially, we're comfortable. And if we're not comfortable, we're not happy. And I think it's almost ironic that, we sign up for these things knowing full well we're not going to be comfortable when we go out there, because usually you can't predict. Generally, you're not going to know what the weather's going to do. And, I don't know how many times, Aaron, I've signed up for a race and I go out there and I'm thinking, oh, the weather's forecast to be perfect. And then just some cold front or something blows through and it's like, I prefer the cold weather, or some storm blows in. It's like, what? Or you get a heat wave, right? It's like, yeah, the weather's supposed to be great. And then you're looking at 85% humidity with 80 degrees. And it's like, I didn't train for this and I'm not hydrated enough. And now I'm in a deficit and I'm in trouble and I got GI issues and I'm blah, 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 blah. And yeah, it's not meant to be comfortable, but it is meant to push us in all sorts of ways. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've always loved it, is because it pushes me. I learned how to handle adversity and how to, I think ultra running, honestly, Aaron, helped prepare me for COVID-19 and how to handle stuff, because that was right off the tail end of my hundreds that I ran, and I lost my job due to COVID, and people are freaking out, right? I don't have a job. Oh my gosh, how am I going to make it? And I was like, okay, what else do we got coming at us, right? Because it's like you're running an ultra, you have to adapt and adjust to your surroundings, to the situation that you're dealing with. It's like, okay, I'm too hot. I got to take something off. Now I'm too cold. I got to put something on. I got to eat this. I got to drink this. I got to change my socks. I got a blister. Pop the blister. You know, you're adjusting constantly. Your mind is constantly going, right? And I'm like, bring it on, because I was like, yeah, we've never experienced this before. Nobody had ever been through a pandemic. Well, guess what? Nobody's really, no ultra and no race is ever the same. So it's like, it's just like a giant ultra. I'm like, you got the highs, you got the lows, you got the unexpected. I'm like, okay, let's go. And so it's like, I think it prepared me as much as possible to stay on my mental game. And that's one reason why I started the podcast, was just to help me stay mentally clear, prepared, and just, you know, you take on the challenges that you're faced and you just deal with it. You roll with the punches, and you keep, you know, consistency, right? You log your miles, you adapt, and you adjust, and
Yeah,
you get what you can, and you put your best foot forward and just roll with it.
yeah, for sure,
So
man. And to touch on, I know you said you signed up for the last
yes,
man standing.
I wanted to pick your
So
brain on that for a minute. Yep.
yeah, and it made me think of it earlier when we were talking about, the concept of running for time versus distance. It's similar in a last man standing. You just don't know how much time you're going to be running for, and you really have to be able to just be present with the lap you're running
Mm-hmm.
and not get overwhelmed with the big picture. And you have to find that way to stay as simple as possible. So what's the format that you're doing?
So
What's
it's
the
going to be
distance and the time?
4.42 miles. So that's your yard, right? For those that don't know what a last man saying is, it's you line up, you do a you do your loop or your yard within an hour time frame, and however much time you have left in that hour is how much time you have downtime to kind of catch your breath or whatever, hydrate, whatever. And then on the hour, every hour, you line it back up and you do it again, right? And so this is just under 4.2 miles for the yard. And yeah, you just line it up and we go. And I mean, the terrain, it's in Northeast Kansas. I'm familiar with a lot of the terrain. I mean, of course, nobody's going to be perfect. We don't know exactly where the trail is going to be. My sister rides bikes out there, and she's like, "Oh, you're going to have fun." But you know, like you said, you got to be present and keep it as simple as possible, right? Because I know that I could just completely tweak myself out thinking, "Oh my gosh, you know, we've tried to do some of the training where you run for 4.2 miles and then we rest for the, you know, just to prepare ourselves mentally." And which is similar to running an ultra, right? Because when you stop at an aid station, you know, it might be 5 or 10 minutes that you stop and you eat something and you drink something, and you're trying to keep yourself from getting stiff. And that's the thing, is staying loose and limber and engaged. Because I'm like, yeah, I can do 4.2 miles, no problem. But then you got the mental side that starts to weigh on you, and the physical side that starts to weigh on you, and it's like you don't know what's going to happen. And so I was just going to ask you what the biggest challenge that you had when you did yours, how you stayed, you know, in the game to try to stay in there as long as possible.
Yeah. I mean, the mid-state mile is slightly different. It's a 1.1 mile loop and you have 20 minutes to start another loop, but it's still you're running loops. So I would say try to get everything dialed in as much as you can with your process and stick to your process and try to anticipate something that you might need. I mean, with mine, I would say, hey, I think I'm going to need this on the next go around, instead of getting there and like, I need this, and this. Think about, even if you're like spending a mile, the last mile before you get there, think about what you want to do when you get into there so you can be very efficient. Because how often do you see people go through an aid station? They're like, I don't really know what I want. They
Hmm.
grab this, they grab that, and then they're like, oh, I forgot to get this. I needed whatever.
Yeah.
And they were so distracted. I would say it's more critical because you don't have that time. You don't have as much of a buffer as you would in a typical race to take your time. So try to be a little bit more methodical in your approach and put in every loop. Make sure you're putting in enough time to think about what you're going to need so you can get the most out of that. If you're going to run that thing in 40 minutes or 45 minutes, you got 15 to 20 minutes. Think about how you're going to use that.
Hmm.
And I would say if you can, rest as much as you could too. Like if you're going to go far, I know you don't want to get stiff, but if you could get everything done in like 10 minutes and you can just sit there and just breathe and close your eyes for 5 minutes before you have to go, I found that you need to be able to like disconnect from the stress of it because you're going to feel a different level of anxiety than a typical race because you have that clock that
Mm.
you can't miss. And it's something that it's good because it keeps you motivated. You're not going to be wasting time, but you also need to be able to shut off. For me, I found like I need to be able to like shut off my brain, even if it's just for a couple minutes, just to just let that stress go and then be like, okay, I'm ready for the next one. So you're gonna have to find those mental strategies that work for you, but you can really you can get into a groove and get into a rhythm. So maybe think about what you want that rhythm to look like. As much as it's probably good for you to train running that 4.2 and then stopping, if you're gonna do anything in training, make sure you're like practicing that 15 minutes. Like that running is easy. You know how to run.
Yeah.
You know how to drink and eat while you're running, but it's that 15-minute, like make the most out of that aid station time. Because if you think about it, like changing shoes and socks, like if you had to do that, like maybe wait till the next time and say, hey, next time, get my socks and shoes ready, and get my lube and stuff, and we're gonna do this so that they can know. Instead of running in like, oh, I need socks, I need shoes, I need this, I need that. See if you can wait one more loop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And give your crew time. Do you have crew helping you?
Yeah. There will be a limited crew.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, man, it's fun though. It's an awesome experience because you get to start that loop with everybody every time. Whereas a 100 miler, you might never see the leaders, but
sure.
you'll get to start every single loop with the person that's gonna win and the person that's not gonna win. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's cool. It's cool to like have that reset and see everybody, and then you start to see the people that are dropping off, and then they start to come around and support everybody.
Yeah.
It's a really
It's,
awesome experience, man.
and I guess it's going to kind of almost have a Hunger Games feel to it, right? Because they have a gong that they ring. And so they bring the gong for every loop, right? To start. And while you're running that loop, they bang the gong for each person that has dropped out during that. So it's like, oh, okay. So somebody's dropped out when you hear that. So, that's going to mess with you mentally too, because it's like, oh crap, someone just got gonged, right? It's like,
Yeah.
let's keep on
Oh man.
going. Let's keep on doing this. So yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, I'm like, I'm not even thinking about it. I'm just trying to get my miles in and train. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna toe the line and do the best that I can in the moment that I'm in, and just roll with it, because it's like that's just how I am these days. I'm just gonna go for the experience and the fun. And there's a lot of people that, we're in a Facebook group and we message back and forth, and I've gotten to run with a couple of the guys that are going to be there. So we're taking a group of about 14 of us, from different parts of this area, that are going to run. So already going to have kind of that bond. And those that have already said they're only going to run X number of loops, and then they're going to drop, and then they're going to, support people and cheer you on. So you're already going to have a cheering section, which will be huge, and you got support. It's not like I'm not even out there and not know anybody. we're going to have a team and we're going to be pulling for each other. So that'll be cool.
Awesome. I look forward to following along, man. When is this one
Absolutely.
again?
It is April, let's see, April 22nd, I think. April 21st, April, something like that. Last part of April. So, yeah,
Cool.
I'll keep you posted on it. And I'll probably pick your brain between now and then on some other stuff that comes up, what I'm thinking about it. So, but
For
man,
sure.
I absolutely appreciate you jumping on with me, Aaron, and enjoyed hearing a little bit more about your adventures, because I know in 2.5 years a lot has changed. You've matured as a runner, as a person, and it's awesome to hear you tell stuff, because the last time we talked, you didn't have those experiences. You didn't have that that knowledge and those experiences. And so, I can see it. I've seen it firsthand. I saw where you were beginning, and now I'm seeing where you've grown. And so it's really cool to see that. That's I guess, what would you even call that? I don't want to call it a process, but transformation, I guess you could call it, from beginning into ultra running and not knowing what the heck you're doing. And there's still stuff that you don't know what you're doing, but as we both know, you just adapt and you learn as you go. But it's been cool to watch things progress for you. And man, I'm looking forward to seeing more stuff from you as you go along. And we'll have more conversation down the road, my brother.
Thanks, man. I appreciate the, chance to catch up, and glad to see you're back into running. I know it's something that, like, I always knew you're going to come back to it. I saw you playing disc golf and I was glad for you, but I'm like, he's going to be back. He's going to be back. He can't stay away forever.
No,
It's in your blood, man.
I was born to run. So it's like, I had to take a sabbatical. I had to take a leave of absence, and I didn't know how long it was going to be. And it was about 9 months. And as we know, for a baby, it takes 9 months in a mother's womb for a baby to grow and to be born. I was like, I had to be reborn and have that fuel, that fire once again, raging. And I'm taking it a different approach now. It's not going to be I still like to go out and run hard like I did last night, but then it's like, I'm just doing my thing. And I think for those that are listening and watching, I think that's the important thing, is when you're running, do you. Don't try to do like I do or Aaron does, or you see the elites out there. That's not you. Run your race. Do what you feel is best. If you need to walk, walk. If you want to run, run. Just be out and be active is the main thing I just want to encourage people to do. And whether it's 5 miles or 500 miles, it doesn't matter, as long as you're getting the miles in and you're going out and you're having fun. I think it's the important thing that Aaron would agree with me, is just go out and enjoy life and enjoy the gift, and make it as memorable of an experience as possible. And as we both know, you can get the miles in without even running, right? You go out and hike the mountains, or you go out for a nature hike with your kids, or you go play disc golf, whatever it is. I was still getting miles and time on my feet. So whether one thing or another, you get your time in. That's the important thing, is staying active and enjoying life. So, but Aaron, I appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you soon, and appreciate your time, your input, your advice, and your stories. And we will catch up down the path at another time when we have a few more miles underneath our belts.
Sounds good. And maybe we can get out for a race someday together. That'd be
That
awesome.
would be awesome, brother. I haven't been to New York in 35 years, but maybe one of these times we might be able to. Well, you come back down to Tennessee. That's not too far.
Yeah, we'll
So
meet in the middle somewhere.
absolutely, brother. All right, man.
Cool.
You have a great night, brother.